I guess I had to think of...
I've been heeding all my dreams, had to manifest.
Hello, this is Deidra McIntyre for Black Blockchain Summit, and we're back with another great panel. Today we have a number of guests, and we're going to have them introduce themselves in a minute. But the topic of this panel is ensuring Caribbean's success in the blockchain age. It's a long overdue panel. We've always been a Pan-African and Pan-Caribbean conference. We've always had participants from throughout the Caribbean and the world, but we've never really had a concentrated talk about the Caribbean and different Caribbean nations. Obviously, there's more than 100 different locations, and we're not covering all of them, but we have a number of guests representing different parts of the world, and I would like them to take time to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Tara Frater.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Tara Frater, and I'm an attorney at law that's based in Barbados. My practice is called FT Legal, and I'm also a strategic partner with a blockchain service provider called DLT Solutions based in the British Virgin Islands. I work a lot with clients who are seeking to set up structures in the Caribbean, and increasingly with crypto entrepreneurs who are looking for an ideal home in the sun in the Caribbean, because as you know, there are many jurisdictions that offer opportunities for crypto entrepreneurs.
All right, Alejandro.
Hello. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm Alejandro. I'm the founder of Kokonut Network. I'm based in the Dominican Republic. On a very high level, what we're building is a blockchain-based co-op around a network of coconut farms. We are building our first plantation in the Dominican Republic that is going to host 60,000 trees and produce up to 18 million coconuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen.
My name is Maureen Murat. I am based in DC, but my family is from Haiti. So I consider myself, instead of I guess most people just say you're American, but I'm Haitian American. Both my parents are from Haiti. And I am an attorney as well, but my business, Crowdie Advisors, really serves as more of a consulting practice for clients who are trying to raise money for their small businesses. And so that often includes digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and things of that nature. So happy to be here.
Thank you. And Al.
Hey, everyone. My name is Al Kieran Wright. I have spent I've spent almost 20 years in the financial services industry until I fell down the blockchain rabbit hole. Maybe 4 years ago, indefinitely. I've been working in the blockchain space full-time for the last 3 years as a consultant. I host one of the longest running blockchain-related podcasts in the region called the Crypto and Cognac podcast show. And what I've been doing basically is being somewhat of an educator, somewhat of an advocate in the region, trying to get both institutions and governments on board with what is happening in the blockchain space, helping them to understand the space so that they're not so fearful about it, as well as helping to educate the retail population. My belief is that adoption is inevitable, and I would like to see the Caribbean not just participate, but really thrive in this space.
Fantastic. My first question is not specific to a lot of the projects that you may be working on specifically, but just in terms of the countries you're from or the countries your parents are from, what is the overall sentiment of Bitcoin and this, or any of its children, blockchain, altcoins, NFTs? What's the current climate like? Is it accepting? Is it curious? Is there opposition? Just so we get an idea of, if anything has changed throughout the years. So I'm going to begin with Alejandro.
The Dominican Republic, I can say that it's a special case. For example, the peer-to-peer market in the DR is very huge, but there is no websites that track this type of activities like trading of Bitcoins, USDC, USDT is something very common here. Even like brick and mortar local currency exchange, you go into the store, and you can exchange Bitcoin or stable coins for cash, like no KYC, because they know that this is another asset, like the dollars, the euros. So yeah, in the Dominican Republic, the peer-to-peer market is huge, but when it comes to, like, say, solutions deploy, working, I can say that I know of any like big solutions working to solve any problems, like using the blockchain technology. But when it comes to the local community, like everyone knows about Bitcoin, stable coins, how to buy NFTs. Like there is a very huge communities of NFTs in the Dominican Republic, builders, developers. Like the sentiment is great, but you know, like we need to go to the next level and actually use the tech to try to fix problems. But sentiment is good overall.
Thank you. Al?
I think this is a question that has to be discussed at different levels, because there is the retail market, there is the commercial market, there's how governments deal with it. I am based in Trinidad and Tobago, although I do work across the Caribbean. And in Trinidad and Tobago, I would say the retail market is very aware. There is a very active peer-to-peer market. There are a couple OTC desks set up in the country, but we still have a lot of challenges. The banks continue to be very adversarial to crypto businesses, to persons trying to onboard and off-ramp their to and from the crypto market. The government is curious, but very wary. I've had the opportunity to sit pretty close to some of those discussions, being on the board of the FinTech Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and through that board, being on the Central Bank's Payment Services Systems Council. And recently we had a conversation with the IMF, or you could call it an awareness program with the IMF. And I think that has moved us in a very positive direction as it relates to crypto and blockchain, because the IMF's position is that it is an impossibility to stop crypto and blockchain at this time. So what they've advised is that central banks, that governments don't attempt to ban it, right? To monitor it, to continue to educate themselves and their people around it. And also they've taken the position not to outright legalize it as well, because you don't want to create an environment that makes your country a target destination for companies and projects wanting to register, whether the good ones or those with the nefarious intentions. So I think it's a very diverse level of appreciation for the space. Obviously, a lot of that attention has died down now as we've kind of moved away from the bull run and we are currently in a bear market. But I would say there's definitely a strong appreciation. Like Alejandro said, there are a bunch of companies here that accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as forms of payment. And as someone who has worked in the space for the last 3 years full-time, all my income has been derived from crypto. I've had to convert crypto to be able to pay my expenses here, and I've not had a problem doing so.
I guess I'll piggyback off of Al in terms of it being, I guess, in layers. So a few years ago, there was a project with the World Bank to bring farmers kind of up to speed and to also pay them fairly, right? Because a lot of farmers in the chain of, farming, the farmers are the ones who were getting like the least amount of money. The logistics providers and all these other people were getting all this money. And then at some point, I think Haitian farmers were getting 6 cents per kilo, which is something like just ridiculous. And yet they're selling these mangoes, let's say for $2, $3 at Whole Foods, right? Because they're organic. So I think from the business perspective, yes, there is interest. There is There is, curiosity, because I think people have at least seen that, there might be some fairness allotted to them if they go this route, right? As opposed to just doing these handshake deals that have never served a lot of businesses in Haiti, because a lot of the businesses are agricultural, right? And then I know the Haiti's government a couple years ago also had thought about launching a CBDC to, help with payments and to also help with just kind of leveling the field for financial inclusion for people, because the Haitian dollar was, very devalued. But of course, in the last few years as well, has been all this chaos. The president was assassinated, there's all these issues with gas, and so I feel like even though there has been interest, it's taken a backseat, if you will, because there's so many other issues happening now, unfortunately, that I still think there are people who are trying to make it work, right? Like, I know there are people who go to Haiti often. There are schools there that are teaching people how to code and things like that. But again, I think it's still being overshadowed by the current political climate, unfortunately.
A lot of the comments that Al shared, I think, not just apply to Trinidad, but they apply broadly across the Caribbean. And I can certainly share from the perspective in Barbados that there is interest and people are aware of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, but I still believe that there is a considerable degree of conservatism and wariness generally at different levels. In terms of I think the level of appreciation and understanding around technology and cryptocurrencies, that is still for the moment within small circles and small communities, which are tightly connected, and these people know each other, and they know how to on-ramp and off-ramp crypto, how to deal with the challenges, in terms of integrating with the existing fiat system, and how to acquire crypto assets. So there's a small community that I think is actively involved, understands, is aware. We do have a few companies that actually are in the space that are set up in Barbados for a number of reasons. In terms of the government and its approach, I'm involved in the government's FinTech Advisory Committee. I think our government is effectively taking a sort of wait and see approach. And I think that's not necessarily unjustifiably in the light of what happened with the Bahamas and FTX recently, which was most unfortunate. And I think that, governments in the region are perhaps a bit rightfully wary of being plastered on the Financial Times for all the wrong reasons in crypto, because we struggle to build and maintain solid reputations in the international monetary system generally. So the banks are, not necessarily friendly to crypto here in Barbados either, but people are interested, they're curious. I saw recently on our tax return in Barbados that there's now a whole new section that deals with crypto assets, asking people to, declare whether or not they're engaging in crypto investing, which is quite new. And, I think it's going to be very interesting to see, in which direction our government's interest is fueled in this space.
Now, Tara, I'm going to keep you on the line for the next question. Ideally looking forward, even if it's blockchain, even if it's into NFT related, what would you like to see happen in either Barbados or British Virgin Islands? What would you think if you had, you said you're on an advisory committee, just forward thinking, what would be a boon that would improve situations, or just find something that would be useful?
I think it would be useful for a number of jurisdictions in the Caribbean have actually enacted regulatory frameworks dealing with virtual assets. So those jurisdictions include Bermuda, the Bahamas, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, and they're generally, virtual asset service provider regulatory frameworks. The approaches vary in terms of, I think the sort of level of conservatism, as it were. but they broadly seek to regulate exchanges, anyone engaging in custodial activity, anyone engaging in hosting virtual wallets, et cetera, et cetera. What I would like to see is, for my part, or for our part in Barbados, I would like to see our government jump into that foray and actually create a regulatory framework for that's specific for virtual asset service providers, which I think strikes a balance between ensuring that there is appropriate oversight and that there are appropriate filters for some actors who may not necessarily have the best intentions, but at the same time attracting the high quality projects to the jurisdiction, because of course these are, at the end of the day, entrepreneurs, they're businesses. And if we get more of these entrepreneurs to set up in our jurisdiction, that means increased foreign direct investment, that means jobs, et cetera, and it helps to, I think, foster or incubate an ecosystem that will continue to grow and will actually hopefully pull in the local population more to participate in a substantive and meaningful way in these businesses. And I would also broadly like to see that happening more across the Caribbean, not just in Barbados. So, I'm very happy to see that there are regulatory frameworks in certain jurisdictions of the Caribbean. I'd like to see that throughout the Caribbean, because this is one of those opportunities that I would like for us to play a significant and active role in.
Everyone's going to have an opportunity to answer this question. I just want to add something to it. There is one company that I can, one organization that I can think of that is doing a lot in agriculture in terms of using blockchain for giving those at the zero level of the supply chain, which are your farmers and miners and recyclers, giving them and connecting them directly with corporations in corporate America, so that the corporations know that this mango farmer, coconut farmer, they submitted this to the tier one within the supply chain, which a lot of the abuses occurred that Maureen mentioned. Was saying that they're getting pennies on a mango when it's being sold at the dollar rate. So I want to bring this question also to Maureen and then follow up Alejandro, and we'll end it with Al. But is there any talk about just bringing the blockchain technology in which companies can pay those that are actually doing the resource level work directly using because they have the data that proves that the person produced what they said that they produced and isn't lost in this kind of muddled environment. So Maureen, and then we go to Alejandro and then Al.
Yes, so there's definitely an infrastructure being built to make sure that farmers are fairly being paid, and everyone else along the chain as well, not just the end person or end user paying. They're also using technology to not only show that they did produce whatever they said they produced, but I kind of get a snapshot of when it was planted and all that, and when it was put on the boat and things like that, to kind of track its movement. So that's definitely, that technology definitely is there. And then we have, different fintech companies like Haiti Pay in Haiti, who are trying to essentially help people, become at least comfortable with the technology, because that's the other hurdle, right? That people have not been, used to using a smartphone. They might have a phone, but they use it for very limited, things, for better or for worse. WhatsApp has definitely helped, right? In terms of getting people more comfortable with using a phone, talking, sending money, sending messages, things like that. So now we just have to get, more adoption when it comes to moving money, right? Because Haiti tends to be a very cash-centric place, right? And most, a lot of times if you're on the street and you're trying to buy something, they might want, instead of you giving them Haitian dollars, they might want US dollars instead, Okay. So, but yes, to answer your question, yes, there is technology, there's infrastructure there. It's just, and even though I mentioned about the civil unrest and all that, people still do want to engage in commerce, right? They still want to be in business. The average age in Haiti is 25. So there are a lot of young people who need something to do, right? And it's hard, yes, but there is interest there. And I think, as long as people keep remembering Haiti in these conversations, I think that will be helpful. I know that I mentioned about, I don't know if we're thinking about the same company for the blockchain technology, right? Yeah, the smart chain, or a value chain, they call it sometimes. But, oftentimes when we involve the World Bank and things like that, it comes, you also have to take that, that participation or that influence with a grain of salt, right? Because they have their motives too, right? So that's something else I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because we don't necessarily have the resources, so we have to rely on these big companies, and they have their motives that aren't always in our best interest.
Great. Alejandro, take about 2 minutes, because I know this question is right up your alley.
Like, from my point of view, for example, what we're doing at Kokonut is a proof of concept. Like, for example, we partnering up with underserved communities. The land for the first plantation is owned by a group of families. It's not like they are letting the land go. They keep the ownership of the land, and they get the funding to develop the project. They get the wisdom of the crowd, because we have a DAO. And basically, it's a proof of concept, because if this is a success, we are basically unlocking unlimited funding for agriculture at any level, for any fruit, and everywhere in the world. It's not only for the Dominican Republic, it's not only for the Caribbean sector. It's like people is going to have a framework on how to organize and deploy coconut multi-crop plantations, because we are not just doing coconuts. We are doing other short-term crops, so we can maximize the use of soil. So basically, we are building a system for the community, and everything is designed around community, like governance, treasury, allocation, and the distribution of rewards. Because if you do some research, you can pick whatever sector you want, and the farmers, the people that actually grow the food, they are always the poor at the biggest extent, and all of the value is kept into the top. So what we're building is a concept that works from the bottom up when it comes to distribution of rewards, when it comes to the security of everything, because it's the community. It's not like there is like Maureen says, big corporations with interest. It is like everything that happens is by the community, for the community. And I believe that layer of trust that is built by the community is able to unlock many possibilities for any community, because the data is the new currency. So if you have data that people can trust, and other people can use this data to build like products, DeFi tokens, DAOs on top of DAOs, like there is no limits on what you can achieve when you have trust in the data.
I want to give Al
Thank
like
you.
30 seconds. Sorry, because time kind of spelled by, but it was closing thoughts. Al.
That was all. Sorry.
I think I'm going to just go the complete opposite direction to everyone so far with my 30 seconds. I think we need to get away from our mindset of state dependency, which I think rules us in the Caribbean. I think what we need to do is be driving into other areas of the world and getting capital into the Caribbean, getting funding into the Caribbean, promoting the Caribbean, not just as a bunch of different islands that have 61 million, 3 million people, but 40 million people, active citizens in the Caribbean, another 20 to 40 million worth of tourism traffic coming into the Caribbean. That's 80 million people in terms of users. And I think from there, we can start building projects that have real impact, not just in the Caribbean, but on the world. Because at the end of the day, the last 14 years of blockchain, the last 14 years of Bitcoin has gotten to this level without the dependency on the government. So let's forget about what the government is going to do. What they do is going to run in parallel to what we do, but we have to be eager. We have to be proactive. We have to be getting capital in. We have to continue to educate ourselves. We have to continue to build products, like Alejandro said, prove concepts, create MVPs that are viable, create products that work for farmers, for different business people, for this very cash-focused economy that we have here in the Caribbean. And we need to create such a high demand that governments have to sit up and be like, okay, now we need to take these guys seriously. So I hope that everybody here is going to be part of that journey, and I look forward to talking to all of you more.
Well, thank you for all of the speakers and participating in our very first and definitely not our last Caribbean focused panel. You know, hopefully some of you will be able to attend on the Saturday of the conference, but I thank you for all your voices because we all going to move forward together. Thank you.